There we go. Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the Ted Show. TGIF, happy Friday. I swear I'm super excited to have this guest on. Lady Amy is with us, and she'll tell you why she's a lady. Well, anyway, in the formal British way. And she'll also share about Houses of Windsor. I loved her journey. I read through her bio. Welcome, Lady Amy. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Ted. I'm doing great. So thanks for
I
having me.
love it, and I love the cutout of our queen, or as
That's
you
right. Yep,
said,
there she
that
is.
is so awesome. So I told you before we went live, the audience loves origin story, and you definitely. I love the title, American Born British Obsessed. So give us a little journey 411 on how who Lady Amy is and how you got to Houses of Windsor, and then we will talk
Right.
about that.
Okay, so it's a long story, so I always try to make it as short as possible. So when I was 14, I got to study abroad over there for like 3 weeks. It was the United Kingdom and Ireland. We traveled around. So that was my first exposure and just kind of fell in love with it. It was just so different from anything here. And I say, really, what I think really solidified it was is that was Prince William's, like, he was in his prime then. So he was 16, I was 14, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and his like birthday photos were on postcards all over the streets at every souvenir shop. And I didn't know who he was. So I was like, ooh, who's that? I
Who's
was
the
like,
hottie?
yeah, I'm like, what's this guy? So I say he was my gateway drug into the royal family.
I love it.
Yes.
You know how many other people I'm sure was their gateway drug into that too?
I know. Yes. And so essentially I just kept going back every chance that I could. I had made a good friend over there. We're still in touch. And so we see each other every couple years. But yeah, I just kept going back. I studied abroad there in college. That's where I learned that I loved their ceremony of tea time,
Yes.
whether it's like fancy at at a hotel, or if you're just at home and you've got a mug of a cup of tea, and they just do it so regularly. It's really, yeah, really lovely.
I
So
love it.
yeah,
I
so
absolutely love that.
yeah, so sorry. You can tell me how to
No,
chop.
you keep going. I love it. So I think it's interesting. I have been there. I've not studied. I'm way too old to have studied abroad, but I love the UK and I love everything about it. I love the genealogy. I love the royal family genealogy. It's really cool. And I loved. I actually loved a lot of things about England that I did not know that I would once I traveled there. And so I get the obsession. My wife is obsessed. My kids are obsessed. I think all of us sort of have a fascination
Right.
with it. But the fascination usually doesn't come with a title, and it usually doesn't come with a business. So tell us a little bit about Lady Amy, and then let's talk about Houses of Windsor.
Okay, so Lady Amy, let's see. Well, so my degrees are in fashion merchandising and apparel design. I worked in that for a minute in Chicago. And then yeah, then got into just like some basic accounting jobs. And essentially, when I had my daughter 3.5 years ago, I was dreading having to go back to an office job. And so my good friend Dan was like, why don't you do this like tea room thing you're always talking about? And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Like, I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs or whatever. I didn't know that was a possibility. But he's like, well, if you're not going to try it now, when are you going to try it? When you're full-time mom and full-time, working in an office. It's like, all right, fine. So for a few months, I was brainstorming while taking care of a 3 to 6 month old.
Wow.
And then, yeah, so basically some other events happened in life, ended up getting divorced. And then I was really out on my own and could really focus on my business at that point, and investing into it. So Houses of Windsor was basically born as a tea party company and sort of like doing live events. And then COVID turned it.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to talk about COVID in a minute. And I do want to
Sure.
talk about the events. I'm fascinated by tea time. I think the ceremony and the presentation of tea time, if you haven't experienced the real one or
Right.
something as close as possible here in the States, it's amazing. So, but before we get to that, Lady, where did
Yes.
Lady come in? We got to
Okay.
know.
I know. So Lady actually was relatively new. I got it last Christmas. So my mom bought me a souvenir plot of land in Scotland, and it is 5 by 1 square feet, and that gave me my ladyship title. So let me see if I can point my finger above the portrait. That thing, that's like
Yes.
my certificate saying that I'm a lady.
Have you been there yet to visit your 5 by 1?
Yeah, no, no, unfortunately not. But my friend Claire, who lives in England, that we're hoping to be able to visit in 2022, and she's like, "We have to go see your land
You
because you're
have
allowed
to.
to visit it." Yeah,
Oh, you are allowed to visit it.
yeah.
I did not
So
know
yeah,
that.
yeah. The idea is just that they're raising money to kind of conserve the area, so nothing will ever be built or anything like that. So that's why it's a souvenir plot. But
It's
it
so
says you can
cool.
like pass it on like after you die. So apparently I can pass on.
Listen, I want to be called something. I don't know what we're gonna do, but
Yes,
my
by
my
your
my
lordship.
family and friends would want to kill me if I added a title. But I love it, and I will. You know what? I will only be addressed as that, and that is how that would all play out. Tell us about Houses of Windsor. So I love tea time. I have experienced it in England, and the closest thing I think I've been here in the States. I'm in Florida. Maybe the Ritz had an amazing tea
Mhm.
time. But what's been interesting is there have been a ton of tea places open up. And see, she's drinking her tea out
That's
of her
nice.
beautiful teacup. There are so many. There are a lot of places that have begun to open up that offer a
Mhm.
proper tea time, and I
Right,
just love that. So, talk about what Houses of Windsor does, and
right.
then maybe give us a little insight onto what a proper tea
Oh, for sure.
time would look like.
Okay, for sure. So, let's see. So, Houses of Windsor was essentially in the beginning of it, it was a live event tea party company. So, uh, I could either do private parties in homes, but I brought the tea room with me. So, whatever space I had, I turned that into the tea room with like the decorations, all of the stuff, including the food and the tea. And, so, but yeah, and then I started doing some ticketed events, and those actually were doing really well. So I would pick a theme. I'd pick like whatever venue I was going to rent out, and then I'd sell tickets on Eventbrite, and then people could come to like kind of like a pop-up tea room.
Nice.
And yeah, so I was really starting to get into that mode of like, oh, I guess like pop-up tea rooms kind of what works. And that's when COVID hit.
Yeah, that must have been interesting. So, did you shift to virtual tea parties?
Yeah, so I do it in a way. So but really what I did is I started focusing on my online shop and adding to it. So I sell my specialty blends of teas on there that you wouldn't find in like a store. Like a cherry rose green tea.
Um,
Yeah, it's really good. So um but I also like to, obviously I love England and everything. And so I thought it'd be cool if I had kind of like a British gift shop with like British imports. So I have imports of like, trinkets, little gifts and stuff. And then I now carry some pretty cool lines of soap and like fragrances. So one is perfectly named Woods of Windsor. That's
nice.
so I carry that one. And then there's the English Soap Company. So yeah, it's been pretty cool just doing different gifts that way. And as far as virtual tea time, I actually do it, we'll say for free, because on every Friday at 3, I have a Facebook group and we all meet on Zoom for an hour and just like hang out. So it's
I
not a proper
love
tea
that.
time. Yeah, it's just all about the social element. And it's been really fun watching everyone like create relationships, like because I would know some of them, but they didn't know each other. And that's my
You
favorite
know,
part of tea time is the
it's
conversation.
interesting to me. The Brits are very particular about tea time. You know that. I'm fascinated by what gets served, if anything,
Mhm.
with tea, because you've heard of tea and crumpets. That's such a
Right.
British. But in the States, little tea sandwiches, I think, is what they're
Yes.
called. And so, what's the real way to do that? Is it only tea, or is it proper to have a crumpet or a tea sandwich at a proper tea?
Yes. So there are two types of tea. So there is cream tea, like I should say, two types of, doing tea. So there's cream tea and then there's afternoon tea, which is often lumped in with the high tea, but that's historically a completely different thing. So anyway, um, so cream tea is just tea and scones, scones and jam. So cream tea is like real basic, just your scone and your tea. And then afternoon tea is the really fancy one where you've got like the three tiers, and you've got, and they do finger sandwiches, so it's not an American thing. So they have the different finger sandwiches. They have a level that's scones, and then they have the level that's like sweets on top. And yeah, so really the you can kind of do whatever you want with it.
Love it.
But I of course try to keep it pretty British as far as what's on the menu. But yeah, they do have now. When I was over there in 2018, some of the hotels now have the gentleman's tea, which is like a more manly version of the afternoon tea, because instead of all the sweets, they get more savory stuff. So like a mini fish and chips, or a
Fascinating.
mini
I thought you were going to say there's booze in the teacup.
yeah, no. Oh, well, but no, not in the tea, but at afternoon tea, totally appropriate to have a side glass of champagne.
Nice.
Yeah,
Now you're talking. I love tea. Well, of course, I love champagne too. I
right.
just love the ceremony of it. I feel like it's like this dedicated time for you to chill for a little bit, to enjoy a proper tea, whatever your tea is.
Right,
Let's not do Lipton. If nothing against Lipton, but you know what I mean.
right.
But I love the flavors, and I like to try tea. It's very depending on what you get, it can be calming, but the flavor is so good, especially when you are drinking it in a proper teacup and it's poured out of a proper tea
Teapot.
teapot. Thank you. So I just love all the pomp and circumstance behind it. I think that's what's really cool. All right, so
Yeah.
tell them. I
Mhm.
love this, by the way. You're amazing. I want you to come
Thank,
back anytime. We should
thank
we
you.
should host a tea
Yes.
uh, on the TED Show, and we should invite
Yeah,
some people, and we'll do that. I'll follow up with you. I love
absolutely.
this
That would be so
concept.
fun.
But how can people best find you? How can they link to you on Facebook or social media
Sure.
or your website so that they can get involved and maybe buy some amazing things from Houses of Windsor?
Absolutely. Thank you. So it's just housesofwindsor.com. The key thing to note is that house is plural. So houses, that throws a lot of people off. So housesofwindsor.com, and my shop is there. Everything's there. All my social media is basically at Houses of Windsor, so it's pretty easy to find me. And yeah, reach out to me if you are curious about that Facebook group. It's calling all tea timers and Anglophiles.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And then before we go, please, Amy is obviously doing this. It's a business. She has a passion for it. So support her. Housesofwindsor.com. Follow her on social media. Ask to join the group if you have an interest. Because I love this concept. I love small business. I love this creativity that you have. And honestly, if you haven't experienced a proper tea time, you definitely want to reach out to Lady Amy, because I think it's an amazing thing. All right, show us. Move just a little so we can actually see Her Majesty or Her
Oh,
Royal
yeah.
Highness behind us.
Yes.
The fact that you have a life size or pretty
I know.
close to cut out is so cool to me. I think it's amazing. Amy,
Thank
you
you.
are fantastic. Thank you so much for being flexible and coming on the show. Go to
Oh
Houses
my
of
gosh, yeah.
Windsor, houses with an S of
That's
Windsor.com, and let's buy some good merch from the one and only Lady Amy. Thank you so much for being on the
awesome.
show.
Thank you so much, Ted.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Have a proper tea afternoon. It is Friday, so we'll see you guys soon.